Привет, I'm Chuck Olenek, a Ukrainian-American baptized with the name Yaroslav. That's also the name I use in the historical reenactment group, the Society for Creative Anachronism, where I'm known as Yaroslav the Persistent. I've been researching Slavic stuff and actually a bunch of other Eastern European stuff and Baltic stuff for decades, and I decided to share the information by putting together videos and putting them up on my YouTube channel and providing access to stuff I picked up. So, it's October. There's smoke in the air, and not just because of the California wildfires. Leaves are falling, so it's time to get into the spookier bits of lore from Eastern Europe. So this one's going to stretch from Poland to Russia and Ukraine, from Albania up to the Baltic, and we'll get to see creatures who make sleep a very fearful place. So let's start with one that I discussed way back in Tales of the Borderland 12, Spirits of Home and Farmstead Part 2, the Kikamora. And let's do the hood so we can get the spookier effect. The Kikamora, that was a female house spirit in Slavic mythology associated with what Ukrainians would call the domovik, Russians would say domovoi, the male house spirit. All right? She can be either a bad spirit or a good spirit, which will depend entirely upon the behavior of the owner. The Kikamora might have the snout of a dog or a chicken beak, or can even resemble a goat-like entity with glowing eyes and horns. In fact, it can take any part of an animal's face or body. I personally prefer Ivan Bilibin's interpretation of her. It's always feminine and can be appearing as an old woman, a beautiful girl, might show up as a deceased family member. When the house is in order, Kikamora looks after the chickens and the housework. If not, she gets really cranky and she whistles at night and breaks dishes and makes all kinds of noises. She comes out at night to spin thread, and the concept of the Kikamora is thought to serve like basic functions and duties in the household. So she would haunt a household if a woman did not keep a clean house, a life lesson, right? If a husband was lazy or abusive, don't do that. The Kikamora will show up. Or if the children are poorly disciplined and you let them run feral. And she can also bring nightmares, okay? But she's not a real nightmare demon. She just basically sends a lot of messages and it can cause troubled sleep. And if you reverse your behavior, like all the bad stuff you're doing, she acts nicer. All right, now we're going to move on to another one, the Mara, or the Mare, or the Mora, which sounds like a shortened name. In the Northwest and South Russian traditions, the Mara is a female character similar to the Kikamora. Usually invisible, she can take the form of a black woman with long shaggy hair, which she combs, and she also kind of has some more involvement with yarn like the Kikamora. In Polish folklore, Mora are the souls of living people that leave the body during the night and are seen as wisps of straw or hair or as moths. Accordingly, Polish Mora and Czech Mura denote both a kind of an elf or a spirit as well as a sphinx moth or a night butterfly or a hawk moth. And we've dealt with them before. And there's other Slavic languages that have a double meaning, as far as butterfly or the spirit. Like in Slovak, it's Mora. So this creature could be the soul of a person, either alive or dead. Could be a sinful woman soul. someone who was wronged, someone who died without confession. Other signs of someone being a mare, by the way, spelled M-A-R-E, like mare, like nightmare. They could be the seventh daughter in a family, or your name got mispronounced when you were baptized, or you had multicolored eyes, or in one area of Poland, you got a unibrow. All right? And here's how another one could be created. If a woman was promised to marry a man, but he ends up marrying somebody else, rejects her, that person becomes a mare at night. And there's a very common belief that one could become a mare if they mispronounced a prayer. So you better say it right. And this can turn into animals and objects like cats or frogs, or straw or apples. People believe that the mare or mora drained people's energy, as well as cattle and horses. Not just energy, but also blood. So now we're getting into vampire territory. In Slovene, Croatian, and Serbian, mora refers to a nightmare. Mora or mara is a dark spirit that takes the form of a beautiful woman in these cultures, and then visits men in their dreams, torturing them with desire and dragging life out of them. It's a common belief that she enters the room through the keyhole, sits on the chest of the sleepers, and tries to strangle them. To repel moras, children are advised to look at the window or turn the pillow and make the sign of the cross on it. You can also repel a mora by leaving a broom upside down behind the door, or you lay out your belt on top of the sheets, or you say an elaborate prayer before you go to sleep. You can sleep with a scythe, because iron repels bad stuff, or you could throw a piece of a noose at the demon, if you happen to have a piece of a noose handy. Or you could try the civil approach and invite the mora or mare to breakfast. That might work. Oh, this one gets really bad. Smearing feces on the front door. Or you could just simply change your sleep position. Or you could leave a bundle of hay in one's bed and just go sleep in another room, because maybe your room's a bad place to sleep. To protect livestock, because remember they also go after animals, some people would hang mirrors over the manger to scare the mare or mora with its own face. Or they affix dead birds of prey to the stable doors. Sometimes the horses were given red ribbons or covered in a stinking substance. Now we get to one of the real nightmare demons, and she goes by a bunch of different names. I've seen Noknitsa, Notsinitsa. Ukrainians call her Nichnitsa, or Nietzsche's night. You might hear Kriksi, Plaksi. Bulgarians call her Gorska Mavka, the wood hag, who's portrayed as having a head of an ox. Okay, that one's going to work to scare me. But if you're having trouble with these names, and there's a whole bunch more I didn't include, just call her the night hag or the night maiden. In Russian and Slovak folklore, Noknitsa are nightmare spirits or demons known to torment people and especially children. Noknitsa is known to sit on one's chest, drawing life energy. Because of this, many refer to Noknitsa as a type of vampire. Think about this when your cat sits on your chest while you're asleep. Noknitsa will often continue visiting. According to some folklore, night hags visit when one sleeps on one's back, which I often do, with the hands on the chest, a position allegedly called sleeping with the dead. According to some folklore, night hags are made of shadow. She might also have a horrible screeching voice. She might smell of the moss and dirt from her forest of origin. If you want to protect your kids from Noknitsa, in some regions, there's the idea of putting a knife in the cradle, or draw a circle around the cradle with a knife for protection. And I guess that goes with the idea of, supernatural beings can't touch iron. That gets back to that thing about protecting yourself from the Mora or Mari when you're sleeping with a scythe for protection. Or a mother might put an axe and a doll under the floor where the cradle normally is, and that would keep the creature away. Or you might use a stone that's got like a hole in the center. That could work too. By the way, you might be getting the idea that all of these nightmare spirits are female. In Albanian folk beliefs, Mokthi is believed to be a male spirit. He's wearing a golden fez, and he shows up to women pretty much exclusively. And these women happen to be tired or they're suffering, and basically he shows up to torment them. One of the talismans that would provide protection from Mokthi would be for a woman to take her husband's hat and put it near the pillow where she's sleeping. By the way, the word translates in Albanian for nightmare. Okay, now we're going to shift up to the Baltic region because those cultures have their own nightmare demons. Litvens or Letonis, okay, that's what the Latvians call this creature, and it's similar to the Slavic Mara or Mora. The Lithuanians would call her Lauma, not like llama, but Lauma. According to Latvian folk beliefs and omens, Litvens, they are the soul, or that's the soul of a person who was murdered, strangled or drowned or hanged, and they are cursed to live this way as long as they were originally meant to live. And some beliefs say that it's the soul of an unbaptized child. So that kind of gets into like Rusalka stuff. And this creature attacks both people and domestic animals. In Latvian folk culture, Litvens is usually described as a labored, wretched child, small in height, moves real fast, comes at noon or at night, so maybe that's for the day sleepers. Sometimes, but rarely, it turns into ugly, vicious women reminiscent of a witch. It always leaves through the place it came in. Commonly, it's some hole or crack in the wall, or it could be a keyhole or a slot in the door. Once inside, the victim is going to have a rough time. The Litvens rides and strangles sleeping people or domestic animals, and there's cases about horses and cows described in folklore more often. The victim rapidly gets tired out, loses strength, gets covered in sweat because of such tortures, and absolutely weakened. The victim might just be able to move a little bit and see just a bit of the Litvens and feel that it is lying on top with all its weight and doesn't give any opportunity to move or run away. It becomes harder to breathe, and eventually Litvens leaves, leaving the victim on the verge of death. However, the Latvian folklore says that if people were born during the day, or if animals were born during the day, they get left alone by the Litvens. So you were attacked by Litvens. When under attack, You've got to move the big toe of the left foot to get rid of the attacker, and then it instantly runs away. I've also heard you can move the pinky toe. That works too, except that the only time my pinky toe ever seems to move is when I find furniture at night. Another weapon in the arsenal to be used in the fight against Lituvans, that's the Lituvans cross. There can be like two different types. The simple one looks like a 5-pointed star. The double or big cross looks like 2 pentagrams put together. In Latvia, it can also be called a seklis. You can see crosses like this on doors and thresholds and windows and other things. It could be also drawn on cows and horses' hooves, and even people who suffer from Litvans, they draw the Lituvans cross on their nails. One very significant thing about this method is that the cross has to be drawn in one step, no lifting up the pen. Otherwise, it won't work, and Litvans can come back into the house even when this has been drawn. And if it's drawn correctly, the cross continues to work. Doesn't matter if it's erased. The hole or the crack or the keyhole, which is the entrance for the Litvans, that has to be fixed with a piece of mottled wood. It should be cut with the left hand, which means if you're really terribly right-handed, you're kind of screwed. And you bring this into the house, with the thick part first. And everything has to be done at night when a Litvans has already come in. So what you're doing is you're plugging the hole, and without finding the entrance, the Litvans turns into a beautiful young woman and stays in the house while the exit is closed. Daylight shows up, unplug the hole, gone. Then I would assume you plug the hole again. Farm animals can be protected from Litvans with a knife or a comb, maybe a scythe, attached to the back of the animal. That pretty much means that Litvans can be hurt by blades or sharp objects, which makes me wonder why people don't protect themselves with that in the house. The creature also could be hit with a rowan stick, Rowan, all right? And so it'll run away and it won't come back. Well, then why doesn't that work in the house? For Litvans, it's also going to be hard to get on an animal if the animal's back is oiled. So it's going to be greasy. The creature won't be able to ride an animal. There's actually hope for Litvans. Just like in some cases with the Rusalka. There's the idea of this person may have become a nightmare creature or a supernatural creature because they died unbaptized or they were murdered. Well, find their bones and bury them in consecrated ground with honors, and the soul won't bother anybody ever again. And at the moment of burying, a thunderstorm is supposed to arise, lightning strikes, and that is the message that the poor lost soul is taken to another world. Okay, so we've dealt with nightmare creatures in Slavic lore, in Albanian lore, and in the Baltic. We'll move on to other topics. Until then, do pobacenia and pleasant dreams.